This is Robb for DisruptED TV, and I'm excited today to be joined by Todd Nesloney. Todd, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Evan. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Yeah, really excited that you're here today. Todd, before we go into our discussion here today, I want to tell our viewing audience a little bit about you. You got a lot of really exciting things going on. You're a building level principal just like me, so we certainly have that in common. You're also a White House champion of change. You're the author of 3 books, Kids Deserve It with Adam Welcome, Sparks in the Dark with our friend Travis Crowder, and Stories from Webb, which is a book about stories from your elementary school where you're actually principal of. I also like to remind our viewing audience that Todd has some really great TED Talks and encourage you to go to YouTube and check those out at some time. Tells great stories. His TED Talks are wonderful. And also, Todd has a Twitter chat that's every Wednesday Central Time at 7:30 p.m. titled #TellYourStory. Todd can be found on Twitter at TechNinjaTodd. So Todd, welcome. And today we are talking about change in education and about one thing that comes to mind that could positively disrupt education for children and for teachers. I know you have some ideas.
Yeah, and my idea isn't anything like revolutionary either, but I think, I've really spent a lot of time over the last couple of years really delving into reading and writing instruction and just books and the power that books hold in someone's life. And I think that when I think about really disrupting education and doing something differently and bringing something else, I think our kids need more access to books, and not just any book, but diverse books with different ideas and beliefs that they've grown up with. Because when I think about, the world we're living in today and the country we're living in today, the more empathy we can build, not only in our students, but also in our colleagues and in other adults. And research shows that the number one way to build that empathy is by consuming literature with characters that aren't anything like you. And then that leads to you beginning to have conversations about what you're reading, which leads to even more understanding and then broadening of your horizons.
Yeah, what a great statement. Todd, I remember from reading Sparks in the Dark, which is one of the books on next to my bed right now that been reading voraciously this summer. That you and Travis make the statement that if you want to bring reading into your world and you want to model it for kids, you need to be a reader. Mm-hmm. And if you want to increase writing and encourage and inspire kids to be writers, you need to see yourself. You need to be a writer.
Right.
And
that's totally right. And we have too many adults, and especially educators, too many educators who will proudly say that they don't have time to read or that they aren't reading. And, I always say, you never say, I don't have time for that, because we always have time for what we make time for. And so for me, I'm really busy too. I get the busy lifestyle, but I make 15 minutes every night before I go to bed to have time to read. I don't always make it to 15 minutes because sometimes I fall asleep before then, but I also have a commute every day. So I'm listening to audiobooks all the time. If I'm going to watch TV, which I love doing, I'm a big Netflix and chill kind of person, but also make time to read, because I know that I love getting caught up in a TV show or a movie, but I love even more getting caught up in a story that I can't put down. I was flying home on a red eye from Los Angeles last night, and I was like, okay, that's when I can sleep. I'm going to have to, because I'm not going to land till like 2 a.m. And then I started reading this new book not new book, but a book that I had never read before called Orbiting Jupiter. And I couldn't put it down. And then by the time the flight lands, I'm like, dang it, I didn't sleep at all because I couldn't stop reading this story and then crying like a baby on the plane with strangers next to me. And I'm trying to hide my face as I'm reading this book.
Todd, I know you're a big fan from what I've read from things you've written about making sure that you're reading books that are connecting to the kids that that you're working with. I remember and you raise a really good point about some people may say, hey, I don't have time to read. I'm too busy. And I was a product of a middle school where at each grade level there were certain books that were just very sacred to the teacher, and those were the only books that were ever read. So in 7th grade we read The Hobbit. The Hobbit's a great book. I would never say anything bad about Tolkien, but it is the only book that my teacher ever really exposed us to when I was in 7th grade. And he would read it out loud, and so we would just listen. So we weren't really reading at all. So,
yep.
Go ahead.
I have found that being a principal and being a reading principal who is sharing books and talking about books, it is such a neat way to connect with kids. And so many times when I have kids who are out there and having a rough day and they need to go for a walk with me, the first thing we do is I say, what are you into? What do you like? And then we go to the library and we browse the shelves and find a book. Or we go into my office and browse the shelves and find a book. And right there we're having a conversation. And then I'm like, you know what? I think you should check out this book because it's totally like what you're into. And if I wasn't reading, I wouldn't know how to have those conversations. And then I'm able to send them back to class. I can't tell you how many times I've been able to really get through to a difficult child just by connecting them with a book. And then they come back to me and they're like, either this book was amazing, can you give me another? Or I didn't like this book at all, try again. So
it's wonderful. You're helping kids develop, their own reading life.
mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you this, because you and I are both principals and budgets are tight.
Mm-hmm.
And, how do you, we have to prioritize our budgets. And, what I'm hearing from you is that you're going to put some real priority into bringing books into your building.
Yeah, literacy is the focus of our school, and it's the foundation of everything. So it's got to be the focus, and that has to come from the top. And so I put away Title I money every year to make sure we get books. I mean, if you follow me online, you probably saw this big thing we did. We partnered with Scholastic and brought a big buy one, get one fair in and gave every kid $100 to buy whatever books they wanted to take home. And that was life-changing for me, just to watch that excitement with kids. But we put aside money of our regular budget to put books in the classroom, to put books in the library. We have bookshelves in the hallway. I mean, we want to have kids access to books. And the only way they're going to do that is if I get the books. And sometimes teachers are filling out donors choose projects. Sometimes we're going over to local businesses and getting them to donate money. So it's whatever we got to do to find the funds.
Todd, let me ask you this question. There's some people that believe that kids who are engaging in independent reading is not an effective use of classroom time, for a teacher. And, I notice you're smiling, so I think I know where you're going to go with your answer. But can you talk to me about how you encourage independent reading within your building and how you give permission for that to occur, with kids and also with your staff?
So if you don't give the kids time to read, they're not going to read. Unless unless their families build that reading. And many of our families don't. And so I love Donna Lynn Miller's one of my heroes. And I love what she says. And she says, she said, I have been to so many schools where somebody will walk into a classroom where kids are silently reading and say, learning is not happening because all they're doing is reading. Where's the instruction taking place? And she goes, but nobody walks into a basketball practice and say, everybody is dribbling. Nobody's actually playing the game. So you need to put that ball down. You don't need to be dribbling. You need to go and do this. It's like to play a sport, there's so many things you have to practice. And with reading, they need time just to read too. And so with our kids, they'll compartmentalize their learning if we only say reading only happens at this time during this day, no other time. It's like we want to give opportunities for kids to read all the time, and that's going to positively impact every part of the school. That impacts their empathy, that impacts their knowledge base, that impacts their vocabulary, their writing, their math, their science. And when you get people to really understand how big of an impact that makes across every boundary line, and when they see it happen, then it's so much easier for teachers to find that time in their class.
I know what a really, really interesting statement you made about practice and the coaching analogy. And I know my mother, Robb, and she shares similar ones to me too. And it's just this simple concept, which is if you want to get better at something, you got to practice it.
Yep.
And you need to make it part of your routine. If you want to be a better writer, you need to work on writing. And
Exactly.
What's really interesting is that if you combine that with good instruction, intentional instruction, teaching kids reading strategies and how to navigate through different texts, kids really develop their reading skills.
Yep, exactly. They have to practice it.
Yep. I think it's wonderful that you're bringing that to your school, Todd. We need to wrap up our conversation, but again, I do want to remind our viewing audience to check out Todd's books. You can go to Amazon and find any of them, and you can read some previews. But what I can tell you, because I've read them all, that every one of them is well worth checking out. Connect with Todd on Twitter at TechNinjaTodd, and join Todd for some Twitter chats every Wednesday, 7:30 Central Time here at Tell Your Story. So Todd, I'd like to thank you very much for having a conversation with me today. And this wraps up our program here for DisruptED TV. It's Evan Robb reminding you that if you want to bring innovation and creativity into your life, at times you need to disrupt your routine. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.